You're walking into a room, maybe a restaurant, maybe a stranger's apartment, somewhere you've never been before, and then it hits you. It is feeling so strange, so specific, that there isn't even a good word for it in English. The French had to lend us one, déjà vu, already seen. You've been here before. You know how this moment ends. Except, you haven't. And you don't. About 60 to 80% of people have experienced this. It lasts an average of 10 seconds. And for most of recorded history, nobody had any idea what caused it. Some thought it was a glitch in the soul. Others thought it was proof of past lives. A few thought the universe was trying to tell you something. Science, it turns out, has a different answer. And honestly, it's stranger than any of those. Let's start with what we actually know. Déjà vu is a cognitive phenomenon, a brief, intense feeling of familiarity for a situation that is objectively new. The key word is feeling, not a memory. A feeling that mimics memory, without the content. Here's what makes it so disorienting. Normal memories come with a story. You remember when, where, with whom. Déjà vu gives you only the sensation of recognition, with no supporting evidence. The frame without the picture. It's most common in people aged 15 to 25. It becomes less frequent as we age, and it's more likely to happen when you're tired, stressed, or traveling somewhere new. For a long time, researchers couldn't study it properly because it's almost impossible to induce in a lab. It just happens, and then it's gone. But in the last 2 decades, neuroscience has found ways to get close. So if it's not a past life, not a glitch in the matrix, what is your brain actually doing in those 10 seconds? The leading theory today is called the Memory Mismatch Hypothesis. Here's the basic idea. Your brain has 2 separate systems for handling familiarity. One system says, I recognize this, and I know why. That's explicit recall. You see an old friend. You retrieve the memory, the context, the name. But there's a second system, faster, more automatic, that fires before the full memory retrieves. It just says, familiar. No context, no story, just the signal. Under normal circumstances, both systems sync. Familiarity arrives, and the full memory follows right behind it. Déjà vu, researchers believe, is what happens when those systems fall out of sync. The familiarity signal fires, but no memory follows. The brain goes looking for the context and comes up empty. And in that gap, between the feeling and the explanation, that's where déjà vu lives. Think of it like a phantom notification. Your phone lights up, you check it, there's nothing there. But the ping felt completely real. Here's where it gets neurologically interesting. The region most associated with déjà vu is the rhinal cortex, a part of the brain involved in detecting familiarity without triggering full memory retrieval. In the 2000s, researchers studying patients with temporal lobe epilepsy made a remarkable accidental discovery. These patients reported experiencing déjà vu right before their seizures began, consistently, like clockwork. Which meant, for the first time, scientists could observe déjà vu in real time, in a clinical setting, while monitoring brain activity. What they found supported the mismatch theory. The rhinal cortex was activating, sending out the familiarity signal, while the hippocampus, which handles memory retrieval, was not responding normally. The alarm was ringing. The records room was empty. A separate team at the University of Leeds found a way to induce something like déjà vu in healthy subjects. They used hypnosis to create false familiarity, making people feel they'd seen objects before when they hadn't. The brain activity looked remarkably similar to what happened in the epilepsy patients. Not identical, but close enough to be telling. What gets me about all of this is how much the experience of déjà vu depends on the gap between what your brain says and what the world actually holds. It's a feeling of certainty with no ground beneath it, which, if you think about it, is a pretty good description of a lot of human experience. But there's another theory worth understanding, and this one is about how memories are stored. When your brain encodes a memory, it doesn't store it like a photograph. It stores it in fragments, scattered across different regions. The smell, the light, the angle of the room, the emotional tone of the moment, all filed separately. When you recall a memory, the brain reassembles those fragments into something that feels whole. Now, here's the fascinating part. What if you walk into a new room that shares several fragments with a past room? Same angle of light, similar layout, the faint smell of the same cleaning product. Your brain begins reassembling. The fragments match. It starts building a memory structure. But the full memory never completes, because there isn't one. You were never here. These are just borrowed pieces. The result is that strange flickering sensation. Not a full memory, not nothing. Something in between. The ghost of a memory that never existed. A few things that genuinely stopped me. First, blind people experience déjà vu. Not visually, obviously, but through sound, touch, and smell. Which means the phenomenon is not about sight at all. It's about the deeper architecture of memory itself. Second, people with certain brain lesions experience déjà vu chronically, constantly. Every moment feels like a memory, every experience already lived. There's a reported case of a young British man who stopped watching TV, stopped reading the news because everything felt like a repeat. He couldn't hold a conversation without the overwhelming certainty that he'd had it before. That's the experience most of us find briefly magical, turned into a kind of prison. Third, déjà vu is actually considered a healthy sign. A brain that never experiences it may be a brain whose memory-checking systems aren't functioning properly. The feeling, researchers believe, is your brain catching its own error. The discomfort you feel in those 10 seconds, that's the quality control system working. Before we close, let's address the room. A lot of people experience déjà vu as genuinely metaphysical. Past lives, precognition, simulation theory. I want to be honest about this. Science doesn't have a complete explanation. The memory mismatch theory and the fragment theory explain a lot, but they're not the final word. There's still genuine scientific debate about the exact mechanisms involved. What I find interesting is this. The scientific explanation doesn't make the experience smaller. The fact that your brain has a quality control system sophisticated enough to feel certainty, detect its own error, and flag it for your conscious awareness in under 10 seconds, that's extraordinary. The simulation theory crowd say déjà vu is a glitch. The neuroscience crowd say it's a feature. Either way, something remarkable is happening in that brief, strange flicker. And the fact that we still don't fully understand it is not a failure of science. It's an invitation. The next time it happens, and it will happen, try to stay in it for a second. Feel the strangeness of it. The certainty with no ground beneath it. The memory that isn't there. Because in that moment, you're experiencing one of the most intimate things a brain can do. Catch itself. For about 10 seconds, you're watching your own cognition in real time. The machinery made briefly visible, the gap between what the brain believes and what the world holds. It's unsettling. It's fleeting. And it is, in its way, one of the most human things you'll ever feel. If you want to keep exploring stories like this, the ones that live at the edge of what we understand, subscribe to Neptune Vault. Because the brain is full of rooms we haven't entered yet.